Welcome to Marvel Champions Podcast, a podcast about Marvel Champions, the card game. I'm your host, Scott, and with me, as always, my co-host, Ryan.
How's it going?
Well, there hasn't been a lot of strife in my life lately, but overall, it's been pretty good.
That's all good. I don't have a catchy thing to say after that.
No quip.
No
well,
quip.
Leaving you up
Got
to your
my
own
cables.
fate.
Got my cables crossed out. I think that's wires, but hey, whatever.
Cables, wires, it's all the same.
Yeah, it's all the same. All the same.
Well, if you've not picked up on it, it is time for our dramatic conclusion of the villains from the Next Evolution campaign box, and that is the number 5 villain, Stryfe.
Stryfe. Now, he was definitely not the main villain that I was expecting to see following Mutant Genesis. I was anticipating maybe Mr. Sinister, maybe a Juggernaut, but Stryfe was definitely not on my list of big bads for a box.
So were you thinking that Sinister was going to be that number 5?
I was thinking actually Mr. Sinister as 5, yeah.
See, and I'd seen Stryfe before, I knew he was a bad guy, but I didn't really know much about him until, we needed to figure out, who is this dude? And I guess he's like a evil clone of Cable, but other than that, I didn't really know much.
Yeah, that's basically all I know. I didn't read any comics with him or watch any shows or whatnot with him, so my knowledge is very limited.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. But as a villain to play in Marvel Champions, he's actually pretty fun.
Oh, early insight I see already.
Yes, fun in the way that he definitely feels like a 5th villain, but he doesn't feel crazy hard all the time. But he's definitely one that it feels like a very high tempo, fast paced scenario.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think him as the last villain, I think Magneto as the last villain, both have hit a pretty good spot of tough enough, but not impossible.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people find Magneto extremely difficult. At least that's my observations from the community. I feel like, unfortunately, with Magneto, you can get a little bit of bad luck. Luck of the magnetic draw, unfortunately. But I didn't find Magneto overly difficult whenever we played against him.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we played Mutant Genesis, I felt, and actually very similar to this campaign as well, that there really wasn't, and again, we do standard, there really didn't seem a whole lot of tension throughout the games. We never really felt like we were losing until we got to the latter halves of the campaign. But I feel like Mutant Genesis, it really not kicked up with Magneto. Like that, when we played in that campaign, his scenario, it felt like we could actually lose versus all the other scenarios. And in this box, I think for me, the ratchet up in difficulty started with Sinister, and then Stryfe kind of carried that.
Yeah, and Mutant Genesis, I felt like his campaign cards for Magneto make him, I think, a more difficult scenario inside the campaign than outside of the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like the campaign cards for Mutant Genesis weren't as good to assist you later in the campaign, like Next Evolution did. It kind of gives you a lot of good kind of upgrades and things that really benefit you right out of the gate going into the scenario.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. And to be honest, after we played Stryfe the first time, I'm pretty sure I made the comment that I was like, this feels like the whole scenario felt very much like a reprint of Magneto, just slightly different to me. Just how the scheme went in a way, and how some of the encounter cards. If to me it felt like Magneto.
Is it because it says Stryfe cannot be defeated?
I think that is one of them, but I mean he's got like Magneto had the magnetic cards. He's got the psionic cards that come out and can attach to you and cause you issues.
So do you want to talk about those psionics, or do you want to talk about his whole like setup and overall kind of vibe that he's got going on?
Yeah, let's just start off with the main schemes. So the main scheme is uncontrollable power, and so in his scenario, he comes with 2 modular encounter sets, and the recommended ones is extreme measures and mutant insurrection. And the setup is you play with Hope, the encounter set Hope Summers, and you reveal a side scheme that comes along with it. So it's almost like a main scheme part 2. Let's see. And then when you flip to 1B, the main scheme, its main little thing is a force response. After resolving step 1 of the villain phase, each player places X threat here, where X is the number of cards of the most common type in their hand. And then you have the option of discarding cards from your hand to kind of change that up a little bit, which is kind of a mechanism that's throughout this game, the whole card types in your hand.
Right, the highest number of certain card types per player.
Yeah.
So what did you think about that mechanic where it was adding X based off of those numbers?
When we first read it when it came out, I was a little like, it could work, maybe it won't, I don't know. But I thought overall it landed for me.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it kind of hit a good sweet spot. I would say you probably averaged 2 to 3 per player.
Yeah.
Was kind of that average. So you were roughly looking at about a 3 to 4 turn before that would potentially complete. And I will mention that one does have if it's completed, you lose.
Yeah, and it starts with 0 and it goes up 0. That's the force response. But yeah, I thought overall the potential of it being really rough is there, but it also has the potential of being not as rough. But generally it was 2 or 3, like you said.
And what the big deal about it is that side scheme that you place during setup, Stryfe's Grasp, it has a crisis icon. So though every threat getting put on there, you can't get rid of it. Because crisis does not allow you to remove any from that main scheme.
Yep. You are race against the clock, which is kind of the theme of this whole box is it's a race.
Yeah, and this is part of that tempo feel that I was talking about. It really kind of makes you make some choices on kind of what path you're going to focus on. Because normally, when we play, and I feel like my play style is trying to be very balanced, do a little bit over here, a little bit over there.
Yeah.
Kind of stay kind of even with attack and thwart. But this one really makes you pick what are you going to focus on. So Stryfe's Grasp is a permanent side scheme, has hinder 6 per player, starts with a base of 4 threat. Hope Summers can only attack Stryfe and can only thwart this scheme. And then it does have a forced response that says after Stryfe is defeated or the last threat is removed from this scheme, flip this card and reveal Living Bomb. Place any threat here on Living Bomb. So you kind of have two ways to focus. Do we just go all attack and take Stryfe out? But in doing that, I'm putting any threat there on the next side scheme of Living Bomb. Or do I focus all my intent on trying to thwart this down to where I can actually manage the game?
Yeah. When this came out and I read it, I was like, this looks crazy, like impossible kind of thing. But after playing, it made sense what they were going for. And I think when we first played this, I was trying to get all the threat off, and you had to kind of step in and say, like, hey, we kind of need to balance this. We don't want to jump all in at the moment. Let's kind of balance this. Let's work on Stryfe a little bit. Thank goodness you did, because it was more helpful. That's kind of how you have to approach him in this first section of the match, is you kind of have to work on both his sides so that you're not completely focused on one, and then it kind of flips to its next phase and you get beat up more.
See, I think you can easily fall into that trap and be so blinded by getting rid of the threat that you just leave him hit points wise. And we'll talk about it later on, but when you get to that kind of second half of the game, when the kind of the whole board state shifts, having to try and deal extra damage with all your good cards becomes so much more difficult.
Yep.
And if you're having to do that for 2 full life, amounts of his life, stage 1, stage 2, or stage 2, stage 3, that can be really difficult when you're kind of handicapped.
Yeah. Would you think of, with that forced response on Stryfe's grasp, the ability to either basically thwart to advance or defeat him to advance?
I think part of it is whichever one your either character or characters is kind of better suited to do. I know when we were playing, the hero that I was had a few really big attack events, and I could just take huge chunks out of his life, which made more sense. And your character was playing more of a justice threat removal. Yep. And we were able to kind of get it down low. And then I think we ended up, this particular one we were playing, it was outside of the campaign setup. It was just a standard scenario. But we ended up killing him, but we also had the side scheme down to like 1.
Yep. We made that decision of, why don't we just take him out and we can handle that one threat that's going to play part on the Living Bomb side.
Yeah. So once you complete Stryfe's grasp, now it flips and turns into the Living Bomb. So you've got a base of 3, any thwart that came over from the force response from Stryfe's grasp, if any. And then it has a when revealed, you advance the main scheme to stage 2A, and this cannot be canceled. It also states that Stryfe can't be defeated, and it has a crisis icon as well. Yep. So you still can't remove any threat. But luckily, if what's the first one called? Uncontrollable Power. If that was getting ready to pop and lose the game, you now kind of get to reset, and it advances to left to your fate.
Yep.
So it's almost like Hope has been supercharged with power from Stryfe and can't really contain it, and she's just ready to explode. And then Stryfe is trying to escape.
Yeah. It's, again, like we talked about, that tempo. It forces the game to change. There's nothing you can do about it. It's just how you get there. influences how the game goes. And so we've been able to do both. Like you said, we've defeated Stryfe in one game, and then we also got rid of all the threat on Stryfe's grass on another game. So we have an experience, because we do like playing kind of both sides of the coin, trying to get rid of health and threat, flipping to Living Bomb with high threat still on it. So it'd be interesting to see if anyone has done that. Please let us know how that affects the game. But it didn't seem like a too big of an issue for us, at least in the games that we've played.
So what do you think about all of the game state changes that Left to Your Fate brings?
So yeah, Left to Your Fate changes the game a lot, because Stryfe gains Stalwart, which stinks. But the big thing that you're alluding to is that each identity gets +2 hand size. All right.
Woohoo!
All right, guys. Great. Oh, by the way, the resource cost to play each of your cards is increased by 1.
And this is like a double whammy, because we haven't really talked about Stryfe as the villain, but on his attack he has a star, and it says that his attack is equal to X, and X is the number of cards of the most common type in your hand.
Yep.
So now you're potentially having a higher attack value because you have more cards in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
And unlike the first main scheme, you can't like discard a card to get that lower. You're just stuck with how many cards you have.
Yeah. It's challenging. This I do not like this.
Like I like playing it, but I'm with you. It's not enjoyable. It really changes and makes you frustrated.
Yeah, I think it is a good or clever mechanism to affect the game, but while actually playing it, it felt very frustrating as the hero.
Because it really can take a hero from being able to like maybe play 2 cards or 3 cards in some cases if you're kind of a little bit into the game, to almost where you might only be able to play like 1.
Yeah, it puts a lot of handcuffs on you. There was one of our games, you got a encounter card. One of his which one was it?
One of his attachments.
One of the attachments.
You're talking about the one to play
Amnesia?
an ally?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
Sonic Amnesia, where the increase the resource cost of each ally and support you play by 2. And then on top of that, you had his +1 from the main scheme. It was +3 to play an ally. How much did you spend on that one ally?
It was a 4-cost ally. So I ended up having to spend 7, and luckily I had like a power of aggression, so I was able to double the resources. That was the only way, and I think I had like some type of resource generator or discount type of generator to make it where I could actually play it, but it took my whole hand.
Yeah, that stinks. And for a final boss type villain, that's pretty rough on you to lose a turn like that, essentially, to play 1 card.
Yeah. Luckily, playing that one ally was what I needed, and we'll get to the attachments, but a lot of the attachments you have to do whatever the negative is to get it to go away, and it kind of helped swing the game, gave us an ally with a tough it was kind of like the exact thing we needed at that time. It was kind of thematic.
Yeah, so I don't want it to sound like it's terrible, but it does alter the game, and in some ways, depending on your hero, it can, especially if you don't have a lot of energy or resource generation, it can be very devastating to have this little +2 hand size cost +1.
Well, I mean, think about it this way. Well, I guess you get +2 hand size. But I was gonna say, if you had somebody that had like a 4 cost card, I mean, you're having to spend 5 resources plus that card. I mean, that's like your whole. That's everything.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
I mean, I guess it's kind of everything if it was 4 cost and you had it like a 5 card hand. But again,
but you
it's
get
all
the
about those.
+2. But if you're playing like a defense deck and you use a couple of those,
that's devastating
in the villain phase, and then you're in your hero phase and you got like nothing.
Yeah. I feel like it does affect protection cards a lot. But like cards that I noticed that it was really rough was 0 cost cards.
Yeah, 0 and 1s.
You're like, I have my whole deck set up to be able to just punt these out, and now I can't.
Because I had like a martial prowess, and that was like my bread and butter. I would martial prowess, and I had like a 1 cost attack event. I was playing aggression, and now I had to waste an extra card to get to play that 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, interesting thing, but it is it can be rough.
Yeah, it was rough, but overall, like, I do like the mechanic that it gave that kind of really changed the way you played and what you could do, and I think it also helped with the, like, when we were playing the games, there was those moments where, like, ooh, we might not make it because I can't do enough.
Yeah. So we've kind of talked about it, but what do you think of Stryfe himself as the villain, or like his villain cards?
Villain, like his actual villain
His stages,
card.
yeah.
I almost, like, right before you said that, I was looking at him like, I almost feel like his main schemes and all those side schemes almost like overshadow him as the villain a little bit. Because I just, when we were playing him, like, if we went down to Alter Ego, he schemes for 1 plus a boost. Like, it wasn't like awful. And then, like, attacking wise, it was usually like an average of 2 plus a boost, which wasn't awful early game. But he himself just didn't feel like very crazy until you get into like the second stage, second main scheme, and he's got, stalwart plus the additional hand size, which makes his potential attack higher. I think early game he's almost like forgettable, but he could definitely ramp late game, second half.
Yeah, I can see that. His other cards overshadow him, at least for the first half of the game. When you get into that second half, things can change pretty quick. So his stage 1, he's a 1 scheme and 0 attack, but he has a star, and the star is he basically gets plus attack to the common type in your hand. So if you got 3 events in your hand, and that's the most you have, he's attacking for 3, which is pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, that's like a stage 2, 3 for some other villains.
Yeah. So his stats are deceptive on that are printed on his card.
He's almost a little bit like a claw in that way, where like he can whiff or he can just like devastate.
Yeah, and I think once you get into stage 2 and stage 3, if expert, he ramps up even more. So, have you read his stage 3, his force response?
I have not.
It's terrible. Give that a quick read.
If you attack him, take X damage, where X is the number of cards with the most common type. Oh my gosh.
He has retaliation X.
Yeah, no kidding. Ugh, that's awful.
Yeah,
That's kind of like Juggernaut. Juggernaut's got that one attachment that gives him pretty much retaliate based off his, I think, momentum counters.
Yeah. So Stryfe, he's a little rough.
Yeah. His stage 2, Winter Build, makes you go discard until you get a psionic attachment. And man, those psionic attachments, I would say, probably one of the most frustrating things of his encounter cards outside of main scheme, side schemes. His like treacheries and things are bad, but man, those attachments can just hang out and just devastate.
Yeah, you got them a lot more than I did, so I think you're a little more, or at least in our last game, you had to deal with it a lot more than I did. I think I only had like one, maybe two, and they weren't terrible. I was able to work around them, but man, you had that one, the psychic inertia, where it's -1 thorn, -1 attack to you, and you have to get rid of it, attack and thwart in the same phase. That's rough.
Yeah, and I didn't have very many thwart action or thwart events, so I had to use my basic, but then I was like defending, so then I was down or exhausted. Yeah, that hung out for a few more rounds than I really wanted it to. Because not only did it affect me, but when I had Hope Summers, it was affecting Hope Summers. All right, Ryan. Rapid fire. Psychic attachments. Which one's the best one to get if you have to get one, and which one's the absolute worst one to get?
Well, they're all the worst one to get.
Trick question. They're all worse.
They're all the worst one. But if I had to choose, I think sometimes it depends on the hero, but
sure.
The one that I found to be the less devastating was Mind Alteration. And so that one is a force response after you play an event or upgrade, take 1 damage. And the response is after you recover, spend a science resource, discard this card.
Yeah, that one's not as devastating.
Yeah, I didn't think it was too bad, but all these other ones, whew.
The one that I can't stand is that psychic or psionic amnesia. You increase the resource for supports and allies by 2, and then the only way to get rid of it is after you play a support or an ally, and you have to exhaust your identity. Yeah, that one's just so devastating.
That one is devastating. The exhaust your identity is the part for me that really kills it.
And I had that one, and that's the one that's like completely like just ruined my turn. It took everything I had to play the ally, and then I had to exhaust the only other thing I can do. And yeah.
In our last game, I got Mental Transferal, which is force response after Stryfe takes any amount of damage. Attached character takes an equal amount of damage, then you discard it. When I had it on, I had like 4 health, and you had like a big attack, and I was like, please don't, you'll kill me. Just trying to work that out. Oh man, because you have to take some form of damage to get rid of it.
And you can't attack him like without dealing with it, which is crazy, which I like thematically and the game wise. I like. And if it's early game, it goes on to Hope. So then you run in the potential of killing Hope or damaging Hope and maybe losing the game by that loss condition.
Yeah.
No,
it's pretty devastating.
Let's see. Gosh. Stryfe himself only has 1 minion. And I don't think we ever saw Zero come out. He does it all, though.
Garb, Troll, Toughness, oof. When defeated, that's never fun.
Yeah, pretty much it gives you the ability to... he can shuffle back into the deck. If the player who defeated Zero does not have at least 3 cards of the same type in their hand, shuffle Zero into the encounter deck. So he can keep coming out. So you almost have to try and get rid of him early in your turn while you still have cards.
Yeah. So tell me, what how do you feel about the side scheme Cerebral Erasure?
Dude, that one's awful. Like, usually it's like win revealed, bad thing. Win defeated, good thing. Or it's like win revealed, semi bad thing. Win defeated, another semi bad thing. This one does two bad things when it comes out and when you defeat it. So it says, when revealed, return an upgrade or support you control to its owner's hand. When defeated, the player who defeated this scheme returns an upgrade or support they control to its owner's hand. So it's just making you get rid of everything you put out. Now, if I was playing Rogue, it wouldn't matter, because every time I play Rogue, somehow I only play events and she has like nothing down. Like maybe her jacket.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of that one. I mean, in reality, I don't think I'm a fan of any of his cards because they're bad.
But it's a very stark contrast from like the first campaign box, where like Red Skull was like, when you defeated, go shuffle like your best cards back into your deck, or like
so
go
nice.
get a free ally.
So nice. I'm like, defeated. Oh man, I love it when you and me are like, hey, can I defeat this side scheme, please?
Yeah, right.
We're like fighting over who's gonna get the bonuses.
And you're like, no, sorry, yet. I can't get rid of it. You're gonna have to take care.
Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry.
Hey, can you help me out here?
Yeah, we're gonna need you to go ahead and take care of that side scheme on Saturday, okay?
Okay. Okay, here's an important one for you. How do you feel about the extreme measures / mutant insurrection minions?
Oh, okay. I was like, what is he talking about? Those are the encounter type names.
Yes. they're minion encounter sets, basically.
I think for him it kind of throws in those roadblocks, because to me, Stryfe as a whole is a race. It's a ticking time bomb.
Yes.
You're gonna either threat out from the first half of the game because you can't get rid of threat because of the crisis icons, or he's gonna get so strong that he's gonna kill you, or you're gonna have to take the defend against his big attack and still get a moderate attack from the minions. So they're just kind of there to really slow you down from having to be able to take out Stryfe. When we played, we didn't see a ton of them. Let's see, we got Strobe. She wasn't awful, because she's got a win reveal where you got to either stun a character or take 1 damage, or deal 1 to each character you control. And I think you had that one and only had like 1 character. You only had your hero, so that wasn't devastating. We saw Wildside. He was
fine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not great to return the highest cost support you control to your hand, but I think there.
I made him just attack me, but I was able to like do something to not make it awful.
Well, I think one scenario you didn't have a support, so he had to attack.
Oh yeah, that's what it was. I didn't have a support, so he had to attack me. Dragoness came out. She, out of all these, she doesn't reveal. She just interrupts. So if you can get rid of her before she actually activates, she's not a big deal.
I do like the Thumbelina. I like her little tech she has. So she reduced the amount of damage Thumbelina takes from each attack by 1, unless the attacker has the tiny trait. I thought that was pretty cool. It's just a random thing that you're not going to experience very often, but there may be that one time that you might be, say, Ant-Man, and can take care and do some extra damage. That's pretty cool.
Thematically, I like Forearm. He's got 4 arms, so his attack is 4. His boost icons are 4. He does have a force response that you have to discard X cards from the top of your deck, where X is the number of fist resources in your hand. Mm-hmm. So thematically, I like how they went with that one.
I think one of the more devastating minions out of both of these is Tempo. So her text has, while Tempo is engaged with you, you get +1 hand size. Great. Cool. Except for this scenario. But she has a force response for her scheme and for her attack. After Tempo activates against you, discard cards from the top of your deck equal to twice the number of cards in your hand. So you're potentially doing 10 plus cards discard from the top of your deck. That's a lot.
And she gives you 1, and if you're in the second half of the game, it's another 2. That has the potential to be bad. All right, I got another rapid fire for you.
Rapid.
So each of them comes with a side scheme. Which one's the worst one?
Ooh. I think extreme measures is pretty nasty.
That's correct. That's the right answer.
Oh, okay. Well, good. Yeah, I think extreme measures is the one that I'm not a big fan of. So it's got hinder 2. So it's a pretty expensive threat.
Well, now that I read
scheme.
it, it's not as bad as I first read it. I read it wrong.
It says, after a player card enters play, its controller takes indirect damage equal to that card's printed cost. Now, events not
don't
considered...
enter play, right? That's what I mean. It's not as bad, but it still prevents you from like playing setup cards.
Yeah, upgrades, supports, allies, those are all free game. So,
and some of those are some of the most expensive cards.
Yeah, and it's indirect, which is not very nice.
Yeah, but that can also be a benefit in some cases. You can spread that out.
In some cases, you're right.
So you love Thumbelina?
I like that thematic little touch right there with the little tiny.
Yeah.
I think that's a good one.
All right. Let's talk about his treacheries. Which one of his treacheries do you think is just devastating?
I think Psionic Surge was one that I'm trying to think.
I feel like a lot of his cards, like him as in general, it's such a like spectrum of, it can be okay to like it can be awful.
Yeah. I think the one that was annoying for me was Telekinetic Wave. Because return an upgrade or support you control to your hand. Stryfe activates against you. It's just frustrating because you spend all these resources to get a needed upgrade for your hero out, and then it just, boop, no, you don't have it anymore.
Well, like reviewing these cards, there's like a lot more of that than I felt like we encountered while playing it. But like reviewing it, that's like the common theme that I just picked up on. But I don't feel like I don't feel like we hit it as much as what it's looking like on paper. Unless you did it much more than me. I don't remember getting it that many times.
Yeah, I mean, if you do look, there's several cards that talk about like returning cards to your hand.
Yeah.
And I think it fits that mechanism is trying to get cards into your hand so that you have more cards in your hand, more card types, so on and so forth.
I think
just spinning resources because everything's +1 once you get to that second stage, like a nightmare.
The Psionic Override, that one, I think you got in one of our games, and it was just like devastating for your turn.
I had a great
because you had this like perfect turn planned out. You were ready to like get as close to winning the game, and it's like completely. And you have to like think of it backwards. Because you choose a card type, then you discard each card from your hand that is not that type, and then you draw up to your hand size, place 1 threat on the main scheme for each of the chosen card type. So you're guaranteed to put as many that you hold, and you have the potential to add more. And I think you were holding on, events, because you had like 2 of your best events.
Mm-hmm.
And you ended up, I think, 2 or 3 you kept, so you discarded like 2 or 3. And you end up, I think, picking up 1 more. But those other ones, I think one was like a resource card. So you ruined the ability to like really maximize your turn.
Yeah, well, I remember. I mean, it's etched in my mind. I was playing Cable, and I finally had a ton of side schemes out, so I could use his, I think, big attack, and I was ready.
Yeah, that's what it
And then
was.
it's like, bloop. I
See
had to
ya.
make a decision.
Well, in
Like,
this
dang.
card, early game, this card can be much more devastating than late game because if you're putting threat on the main scheme that you can't remove.
That's very true.
I do like there's how his cards take on different feeling, like how bad they feel in those two kind of separate halves of the game.
Yeah.
Like it may
No,
be very minimal early game, but it's like completely devastating second half, or vice versa.
yeah. No, I agree. And I think, kudos to the team for, having like a theme run through this whole box of like the tempo and things shifting from scheme to scheme in a significant way. And this scenario is just like that. You don't, if you rush it too fast, you're just kind of shooting yourself in the foot. Because really, the only time you can set up is that first half. You got to set up quick because once you flip, get to that second main scheme, setting up is just so much harder.
I do like how they've kind of come into that stride of that perfect balance. And perfect's a very strong word. That good balance of like forcing the game kind of progress with certain side schemes in the scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want to say Hella really did that well, and that really spoke to a lot of people. A lot of people really like that, and I feel like with Magneto, it's kind of similar. You kind of progressed your way through the game, going through these side schemes, still trying to have to balance attack and thwart. But I felt like it helped a little bit with pacing, and it just doesn't feel like a Rhino,
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. Is players like the story? They like feeling that as they play, they're impacting the game. It's not just with Rhino, it's just numbers. You're just seeing the health click down, and then it goes back up, and then it just clicks down. Where some of these other villains, it's not just about that health bar. It's side schemes or minions or environments. And I think players gravitate towards that because it's telling a story. It's creating a unique situation.
And I felt like this scenario too did a real good job of kind of creating that suspense and like kind of tension that we're getting close to like being at the point of no return. Like we're gonna get one, maybe two turns, and we'll be done. Either we're gonna kill him, or we're gonna die, or thwart out.
Yeah,
Or thread out.
I think in our last game we were doing a lot of okay. So if you flip down, we can do this. But if he schemes this much, I can maybe prevent this to try to get as close to the edge of popping that first scheme without actually popping it. It was pretty tense for that last turn, and then we're like, okay, here we go, we made it.
Yeah, what I like about I think some of these scenario 5 villains is when I play, like we say, we play on standard. I feel like we do well on standard. Some games may feel easier because they're standard, but me as a player, I like to try and keep a very clean board state, keep threat low, do damage. But like this one and Magneto, it's really shifted how I play that way, and almost have to take it to the brink and just be like, I don't care that all that threat's about to go on, and I'm not going to be able to deal with it. We've got to go full steam ahead, and we've got to take this villain out this turn, and just forget about it and go.
Gotcha. Yeah. The one thing that I think I would change is the 1B main scheme is if it threats out, the game's over. And I think I would rather have seen that be if it threats out, hear the bad things, move on with the story. And you can make them devastating, but at least you still have a chance because you can't remove threat. I think that would be my biggest change to this. Would just be altering that.
Yeah, I would agree. Something weird with like whatever Hope's side scheme is, where she's like exhausted and she can't ready. It's like that gains permanent or something weird, where she pretty much becomes void for the rest of the game.
Oh yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, I think because of how the scenario plays out with the crisis icon not being able to remove and trying to deal with all of his hard-hitting cards, it would have been nice to, I think, be able to move on with the story without just, all right, well, I guess I lost. Let's clean it up and try again.
Back it up, boys.
Yeah.
I can see your point. I do. This is one thing I like about this Stryfe Center is I do feel like it made me play quicker as a player.
It kicks your booty to get in gear.
Yeah, you definitely cannot play the slow game with Stryfe.
Yeah.
All right, Ryan. Got any other rapid fires? You ready to move on for final thoughts?
Oh, rapid fire. The art on main scheme 2.
Okay.
2B, you can see it better. What is he doing? That's my rapid fire. What?
It honestly with like how his fingers like poking out. I almost about to think he's creating like a Doctor Strange like time portal or like space portal.
It's just it's funny to me. He's just kind of almost like a Jedi mind trick. Like, you will forget I'm here.
This is not the time you remember me in. Because it looks like he's jumping like back through time through a portal or something. Because that's kind of what it says, right? Stryfe is attempting to escape into the past. Who knows what havoc he will wreak?
Yeah. So I just thought it was just a fun pose.
Well, like
to have.
The like opposite is like, you know, when like someone's trying to reach out for somebody and they're just like hands like being outstretched and like trying to touch fingertips. Maybe he's just trying to like touch fingertips with cable or something.
This is my moment.
Or maybe he's just like slow playing it for like dramatic effect. And he's like, oh.
No.
Yeah.
Last rapid fire on mental transferal. Is that Warpath?
It is. It's his like all black art that you see kind of intermixed in some of the card arts.
So does that mean Warpath confirmed?
Well, he's also
in the future.
He's on the assembled the team campaign card, but he's in his like red and kind of navy blue garb.
Oh yeah, he is in that. Yeah, that's his older outfit.
Yeah, he's more 90s.
All right, that tells me that's Warpath confirmed, right?
Warpath confirmed. Ariel.
He's coming in. You hear here, folks.
That's right.
Here first. I mean, I'm sure people have probably mentioned him. I'm not sure how you'd make him any different than like Drax or.
I like his on that art on that mental transferal. Like he's getting like strikes and shot in like the belly button, and then he's just like his left hand is just like shooting it right to Warpath. Pew pew. Oh, not the belly button.
I'm just surprised how any blasters is getting through this metal armor he's got on.
He's got a lot of unique, like pointy things on his armor that I just don't feel like is necessary. Like, how many vertical like fins do you really need on your helmet?
I don't know. He's got some serious blade spike fanaticism. I don't know what he's going with.
Yeah.
I just want to know how he gets that on.
Yeah, or like moves around in it.
Well, it's like I think there's the story of Batman Christian Bale when Robert Pattinson was getting the role. He was like, make sure you can get out of the suit to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, because his codpiece it protrudes down pretty far, and I don't know how he's walking around in that thing.
Oh man, all that metal, he's got to be chafing.
I bet it gets hot too.
Oh yeah. So.
All right, back to the serious conversation.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Scenario 5 of the campaign, Stryfe. Where do you rate it in the box?
I probably will put it at number. I can't remember our past ones. I think number 3 is where I put it. I think my number 1 was Sinister. It's kind of bounced between 2 and 3 with Marauder's first scenario. But I think I like Marauder's first scenario as my number 2, Stryfe, then Juggernaut, then Marauder number 2.
I think for me, I'd put it second. Like, even though we've talked to like all the negatives of this scenario, I think overall, like, playing it is a good challenge.
Yeah. No, I feel you. I agree.
Like, it's tough, but it's like a good tough. You feel very like validated when you have like a good clean victory with it.
Yeah. No, I think he's a pretty solid ending villain for a campaign set. I think he's been probably one of the better ones of recent. So kudos. I think this was a very strong box. I think it has a good claim to say it's in the top of the campaign boxes that have been released.
Yeah, I know the box as a whole got a very like bad rap of being too easy, but I feel like I would rather box flirt with that too easy line than to flirt with the too hard line, because it's much easier to ramp your difficulty with just going to playing expert than having to like manipulate and counter decks to make it play completely different. To make it easier.
Yep, totally agree.
And I feel like this one hit a fine spot. Like, if I was playing this as just a standard campaign with some newer players, a couple of them are going to be a lot easier, but a few of these scenarios are going to be right on par with a good, challenging standard approach.
Yeah.
For your average player.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the way the campaign boxes should be, is if they have to lean towards easier or harder, they need to lean towards easier, because there are built-in ways to make it tougher. And but there's kind of like a haircut. You can only take so much off. Where am I going with this?
What you're saying is that
you can't put hair back.
Under Strife's helmet, it's a bowl cut, is what you're
He's got a bowl cut.
That's why he wears the helmet. It's just this ugly bowl cut that his mom gave him.
I mean, he's in the 90s, right? So he's got to have one.
So it's like Cable with a bowl cut.
Yeah. That's why he's so grumpy.
You're right. That's why he's so mad and wants to go in the past. He wants to stop his mom from cutting his hair like a bowl cut.
Yeah, that's right. That's why he wears all those blades on this. It's trauma related, honestly.
Yeah, he's overcompensating for the bowl cut.
Yeah.
It all makes sense now.
This really opens my eyes to this character. A lot more sympathetic and understanding.
That's because your previous bowl cuts.
I mean, you got to at least have one bowl cut in your life. Or a mullet. I had a mullet.
You did have a mullet.
It was a pretty rockin' mullet.
It was rockin' 90s mullet.
Every day. I would grow another one if I could, but I would be I'd be out of a house if I did, I'm sure.
All right. Well, let us know your thoughts on what haircut is under Strife's helmet.
Oh,
and also, how you thought Stryfe played out as the number 5, the capstone of this box. Was he too easy, too hard, just right? We would love to hear your thoughts on the topic. You can reach out to us and contact us at marvelchampionspod@gmail.com. We'd be happy to hear from you, and we appreciate everybody listening. And as always, if you want to go from a chump to a champ, listen to the Marvel Champions podcast. Thanks.
See ya.